Okay. And there goes. All right, guys, welcome back to Reinvented. Today I have Tim. Do you want to give a little introduction of yourself for the listeners?
Sure. Name's Tim Murphy. I live in Colorado currently. I don't like to use the word recovering alcoholic, but I think I'm cured. That goes against conventional knowledge, but as you can tell, I'm kind of older than most people, But yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you and tell my story.
You ready to hop into some questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what do people misunderstand about you most?
My voice. I get stereotyped as a certain country bumpkin type person, low education, things like that, and you're just right out of the hills of the Appalachians and you don't know anything. That's stereotypical right there. That's what happens to me.
So do you feel like people when you graduated like school, people think you didn't get a very good education because of where you came from or what you sound like?
Yeah, so most definitely. One of the things I left out of my introduction there, I spent 30 years in the United States Air Force. I'm retired now from the Air Force. Made it up to the highest enlisted rank there is in the military, which is E9, Chief Master Sergeant for the Air Force, Sergeant Major would be for the Army, and so on. So, I made it to the top of the list. But anyway, even throughout my career, when I was first in basic training, people thought I had them convinced this was my first pair of shoes. I was walking around, Kentucky barefooted, and I come to basic training, get shoes issued to me, and this is the first pair I've ever had. And it was easy to convince people of that.
And how do you think it was easy to convince people of that?
And then again, because of where I come from, the way I talk, and just all the stereotypical jokes and beliefs of country people that, their family tree is a stick and, inbred and all that, those things. And Deliverance, the movie Deliverance, I don't know if you know about that one. There's some famous scenes in that, again, people just went ahead and directly connected to me.
And did you ever try to I guess prove people wrong in a sense?
Well, that's a double-edged sword right there. Yes and no. The no side of it is I just let them believe that. I had fun with it. Yeah, this is my first pair of shoes. People, I get asked almost on a daily basis, where are you from? And so I had to come up with a kind of a standard answer. So when I get asked, where are you from? My response is from my mother. And so that'll lead into conversations and things. And then even turn, that into a game of guess where I'm from. And, Texas is the number one guess. And so we go all through and they'll hit Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, all through there. They never do hit Kentucky. So in that way, I turned it into a game. On the other side of it, to try to prove them wrong, I think that's why I got to be the E9, the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force, because I did work hard. I would go in and study, and I outstudied, outworked, and made it to the top of people that were actually smarter than me in reality and stuff. But I just put in the work harder, and that way I did prove them wrong by getting and really becoming their boss. One of the guys I remember used to give me a hard time when I was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base. He was a controller, and I was out, and I'd be on the radio, and even on the radio, he would give me a hard time in front of the flight and everything. Years later, I ran into him I outranked him. I turned in to be his boss. Now, did I give him a hard time or anything like that? No. But his attitude was totally different towards me after that.
Do you feel like you had to show a different level of confidence like going into that than other people had?
Yes. Again, well, I don't want to get stuck on basic training, but throughout that whole time in basic training, my TIs, even when I'd be out doing details in other squadrons and things, the higher ranking people still judged me by the way I talked. And then again, once they found out where I was from, that just drove it more. And so have always been overcoming that. Even now, I got a favorite little place we go and sit down, and my friends have an adult beverage. I'll have an Arnold Palmer, but even the waitresses, when they talk to me, they'll turn their voice into a Southern voice, and I still today get jokes and things about where I'm from, and the backwoods and the family tree being a stick. So I'm used to it by now.
Do you try to have like a lot of sometimes do you try to have like a lot of fun with that when like people make jokes about it? Do you try to like I guess kind of shoot back with another joke or like just try to have fun with it or
Sure. Like I explained with the, where you from? My answer is my mother. That leads into other banter and stuff. Just tell them, hey, keep working on your Southern accent. Before long, you're going to be talking right. And then talk to them about, have you ever been to the South? No, then you don't really know much about what you're talking to. You need to come on down. And then again, once you're down there, you'll talk right. Then I've talked to people that said, yeah, I went to Alabama and I was down there for a week. And next thing you know, I was, talking Southern. And it's like, no, you wasn't talking Southern. You were talking right. That's what happened to you, because it's easy to pick up. It's it is a lazy language, but it's easy to pick up. But yes, that's what you got to do. You got to have fun with it. Go on and just levity. You can't get mad and things like that. That ruins me to get upset about something that, I'm proud of my heritage. I like the way I talk, and I don't have any issues with it. So I'm not going to have issues with other people, making fun of me and, having jokes they think that are at my expense, because yes, a lot of times I turn it on them, and we all have fun over it.
oh that's always good. So with growing up, what do you think your favorite childhood memory was? Or still is?
Oh, wow. That is a tough question to answer because my childhood was not all that good. Oh, wow. That's a tough one because it's I'll come up with something, that must show you right there that my childhood wasn't all that good, not to be able to just right off the bat come up with a good memory. I had good memories of trying to learn how to ride a bicycle that was bigger than me, that was made for, teenagers. And I remember, having to be on the seat and swift one side and push the pedal down. And when the pedal come up on the other side, switch over and push it down, and I'm like this right here. I do remember that. That was fun. Then the way I had to stop, I had to run into a tree. Then I'd take the bike, push it back up the hill, do the same thing coming down again, run into the hill or the bushes to stop, and, stuff like that. Just regular child things like that.
So with like failure, what do you think your biggest failure was, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, well, my life is full of failures, it seems like, especially with being an alcoholic for so long. I was a teenage alcoholic, graduated high school as an alcoholic, joined the military as an alcoholic. When I graduated high school, I was depressed, suicidal, nothing to do. And the military ended up being a poor man's employer for me. And that changed because then I was able to get into the military. Even though I was judged on my accent and where I was from, I still wasn't judged on my last name, and I was able to go in and prove myself. But up until that time, police officers, I come from a small town. My dad was a town drunk. Police officers are always hassling me. And just because of my last name, it happened to my older brother, same thing. We all stepped on the same stones coming up through life. Biggest failures, man. Like I said, I got a whole bag full of them. I can just reach out to, well, here's one failed marriage, here's another failed marriage, not being a good role model to my children. Over here's a little incarceration time. Over here, what have I got here? Oh, look, there's a breaking and entering charge as a teenager. So I've got them.
And with like being incarcerated, did you ever or I guess, is your relationship better with like your children now, or even not even just like your children, just like relationships in general?
100%. I've got good friends now. They still drink and everything, but the one thing, that's what you find out. That's really when you find out who your friends are, is when you quit drinking, and the folks that are still drinking stay with you, want to support you, and do that. With my children, yes, I've got a good relationship with them. I've got a child that I didn't raise, that I came back in contact with him as a teenager. Then lost contact again, and then he ended up joining the Army, and he got stationed out here in Colorado. There's a Fort Carson, an Army post out here, and he got stationed there, and that's when me and him really got reconnected. We went fishing together on the weekends, just did all kinds of things. Sunday mornings, we would go to different places and have breakfast. And I've got another son that we're very close now. We lived together after my last divorce. He came and lived with me, and so we were together and mended that. And my daughter, me and her get along real well. We always did, and I always thought I was a bad dad, but after I cleaned my act up and everything, I've talked to them all. And, the little contact I had with the one son, he said, yeah, when we did have contact, it was good. Both of my children that came up through the household with me, they tell me, no, it wasn't as bad as what you remember. There was some bad times, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the way you remember. And they say they had a great childhood full of adventures, and we did all the normal family stuff. But, there was some dark times. But, yes, my relationship with them now is strong. I'm very proud of them. I talk to my daughter every Sunday. I talk to my son every Sunday. So, yeah.
That's good. So either family-wise or career-wise, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Remember for one thing. Well, family-wise, we'll try to go ahead and answer for both there. For family-wise, I would like to be remembered just as a great dad, grandfather. I've got 7 grandchildren. That's shocking to me right now. That's hard for me to believe. But basically as a good dad. Because again, like I said earlier, that's one of the things when I reached in my failure bag, I would have pulled out, but my children have reconfirmed that I wasn't. But be just known as a good dad. On the work side of it, I would say, again, a mentor, because that's one of the things I always like doing is once I make a step up, who's behind me? I need somebody to fill my spot and start mentoring those folks, bring them along, talk to them about and be open about what I did wrong, what I did right. And if you want to make it up, do these things here, make them your own, but come across. But again, as a good mentor, bringing people along, not making rank and going off and leaving people.
So with all that being said, what is the best?
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So with all that being said, what is the best compliment you think you've received or you've ever gotten?
From the military side, that, yes, you did help me, because I would get emails years later, and a lot of your military listeners can relate to this, is I get emails later on telling me, hey, at the time, I thought you was an asshole. I didn't like you, but now I see what you did, and I made it here, and the reason I did that was because of the advice, the way you treated me, the standard that you held me to, and not letting me slack off and calling me out on my substandard performance sometimes and bringing them along. So, and then again on the family side, just my children saying I was a good dad.
So with like being in like the military, did you like travel a lot? Like were you, I mean like stationed different places?
Yes, as in, see if I can go through some of them here. Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, North Dakota, and then that stateside. I might have left out someplace, but and then I've been TDY, temporary duties, just going for 30 days, 60 days, sometimes 3 months to a lot of Army bases, Fort Lewis, Vandenberg Air Force Base out in California, a lot of military installations in and around Georgia and Louisiana, and all of it was for training, combat training, and things like that. Stationed in Japan, Korea. I loved both of those, were excellent assignments. I wanted to stay in Korea, but I already had an assignment and I had to go. And I did 2 tours in Iraq.
All right. So bouncing off the
But
compliment.
every time, go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I was just gonna get into another question.
Well, we'll go on. Just one last thing right there, on all that stuff. I got to go to some very interesting places, that I wasn't stationed at. I got to stay, for a little bit of time. And rough, I might have had to live out in a tent, everything. And I know some of your listeners that are from Army and Marines are going to have a hard time hearing that an Air Force person stayed out in a tent. But, if a plane crashed, we would go. We'd set up the perimeter. And that usually was in the woods. If they were riots and things like that, we got deployed to them. Katrina, the flood, we went and did those things. So there are certain career fields in the Air Force that are combat oriented, and I was in one of them. And so I just want your Marine and Army listeners there to think about that. A lot of them don't even know about pararescuemen. Those guys are the same as SEALs. They do the same training. They can do battlefield operations. So that's just a little plug for the Air Force, that anybody that wants to join and be in a combat situation or be in what they would consider a real man or woman's career fields, or are career fields in the Air Force, that they can join. So it's a public service announcement. Now let's get back to the program.
All right. So bouncing off like compliments, what's an insult that you've received that you're proud of?
Oh, again, back to my heritage. That's just, telling me that, I'm uneducated and stuff like that. I don't mind that. But a lot of times the person that are saying those things, they're not kidding. Some of them are true. They've had bad experiences with Southern people. Racism goes both ways. I've not been invited to parties because of the way I talk. They just automatically assume my political views are a certain way, and my views of what they think the South, every Southern person has these views. So I don't mind that. That shows me that racism goes both ways, not being invited to parties, not being invited to certain things just because of where I come from and the way I talk. It shows me they didn't get to know me.
So did that ever I guess kind of hurt, like not being invited to places because of the way you talk?
Well, No, and I'll tell you why, because I got used to that from my childhood. Like I said earlier, my dad was a town drunk. Me and my brothers were already identified as bad sheep when we was going through school. I remember I was in one class starting out, and the teacher's up there calling roll, and he gets to my name and a few others, and he follows it up with, "You're not going to make it." Calls the next child's name, "You're not going to make it." And so that's kind of devastating for a child to be told that by an educator. I always say that in school, my bullies were the teachers, none of the other students. I had no problems with them, but the teachers, yes, I did, because of who I was. Even my aunts and uncles, again, my dad was, even though he was their brother, they didn't want him at their house, so they would close the house off to him when he would come. They wouldn't answer the door for him. And if I was with him, they did the same thing. I couldn't come in either. And then my other cousins, my dad's brothers and sisters, when their kids would have birthday parties, they were all invited over. Me and my brothers were never invited to any of those birthday parties because they thought their brother would show up. And then had a relative that lived across the street, and when people would come to see them, I lived with my grandmother, and so it'd be maybe her sisters or some of her nephews. They'd go across the street, visit with her sister, and then they'd drive, and she'd see them drive right past the house. That would break her heart. That would break my heart. But my family, my dad, me and my brothers, my grandmother, we were kind of shunned because of my dad being in proximity. So when I got up into the military and wouldn't be invited to certain events because of, they just stereotyped me as being a certain kind of person because of where I was from and the way I talked, didn't bother me. I was already used to it.
So was that growing up, was it hard, living in a small town, everyone kind of, I guess, knowing maybe what he did or who he was? And did that make it hard on you as and your brother, to see people just make these assumptions about you?
Yes, 100%, 100%. Think about, have you ever watched Andy Griffith, Mayberry?
Yeah, I've seen those.
Do you know what that show is?
Yeah.
Okay. Think of that small town right there. Otis, I believe he was the town drunk. He'd come into the jail and lock himself up. My dad was a town drunk, but he never went and locked himself up. He always come and got arrested. We lived in what was called a dry county, so they didn't sell alcohol. He would have to go to a bootlegger's house to get it. And my first interaction with the bootlegger with him was we went in, he buys his liquor. I see a policeman's uniform in the house. My dad's drunk. He gets arrested. That policeman that sold him the alcohol is the one that arrested him. That's how small the town was. And then that's where I learned just a lot of things from that. So my last name being the same thing as my dad's famous. He would get confused about houses. He'd go over to what was my other grandmother's house, and he would just walk in. This happened many a times. He'd walk into somebody's house, lay down on the couch and go to sleep. He thought he was at somebody's house that he known, but he wasn't. He just went in to somebody's house. So they'd call the police on him. Fighting. My dad, he was a violent, mean drunk. He did beat me and my brothers. He shot guns in the house. That's how I learned to play connect the dot, was the bullet holes in the wall. And so as I got older, so I go through my school years, the teachers being my bully, judging me, again, that I'm going to be like my dad. My two older brothers, they grew up, they did follow in his footsteps, and they were violent people. They did jail time and stuff. So I was judged off of them. Again, let's sit down and get to know Tim. So we know Tim from his dad and his older brothers. Since they do that, he's going to do the same thing. And these are from educators, people that should know better. And so I couldn't get a job. As soon as I'd go in and try to fill out an application, they'd find out my last name. I have been stopped in filling out the application. No, you're not going to get hired here. And so that's one reason I joined the military. I couldn't get, like I said, the poor man's employer. I couldn't get a job in my town because of my last name, so I went to the military. And that, again, back to the other question, proving people wrong. So I did. I even remember when I joined the military, my aunt, oh, you think you can take orders? Well, we'll see. Saying that in a very derogatory manner. And by this time, both my older brothers had already been in the military and been kicked out. So again, if they can't do it, that means I can't. So that was my big lesson on not getting to know the person, judging the person by their skin, their color, their background, where they was born, their environment they was raised in, judging them on that, not getting to know the individual. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and with that, did like when you had like relatives that I guess didn't believe in you or just thought you were going to be the same, did that ever like affect you too, and not just like from teachers but like more like family specific?
100%. As a child, you don't know how to process these things. You need love and compassion, things like that. And I remember one time my grandmother had to go into the hospital for some surgery, so me and my brothers got split up and sent to different relatives' houses to live. When my grandmother got back home and she could bring us back together, me and my brothers got to talking, and it turned out we were treated the same way in those houses. My brother told me, he was told after the other children, his cousins took showers and things, they'd look at him and say, you probably don't wash. If you want to take a shower, you can, but, I know you probably don't. Same thing happened to me. So it was amazing that even though we was at a different relative's house, when we came together, we had the same stories. We was treated the same way. My one aunt was a beautician, cut hair, and so my grandmother always wanted me to go to her. I hated it because when I'd sit down, she would just give me a bowl cut, and you're finished and go on my way. Anybody else, she'd tape, or do, and, they look good. I looked like Moe off the Three Stooges, and I hated it. But it was hard to process those things. So that's why by the time I graduated high school, as a suicidal alcoholic, thought about running away many times, all this stuff. And then joined the military, and that was a changing in my life and getting to go around and see and do. And I did run into people that didn't judge me for the way I talked and stuff. But that's where I learned resiliency, forgiveness, and just having to learn that, kind of like Jesus said on the cross, forgive them for they know not what they do. I got to look back and look and say that, these educated educators were not educated. They was a kind of a book learning, but nothing else, didn't do anything right in the aspects of treating children. They treated children, again, by who they were. If they come from a prominent family in the town, they got treated like gold. Me and my brothers got just, you sit in the back of the room, if you turn in your homework, you're good. If you don't worry about it. And just even seeing that same treatment from my family and stuff, it was, again, it damaged me. It damaged both my brothers, too. They grew up, and, again, drug addicts, alcoholics. One brother has passed away due to such complications of such stuff. And I got another brother that's still having a hard time with it, and I think the reason it's kind of like a roadmap. I was able to look at my two older brothers and decide that because I'd already looked at it and could tell I've done the same things you guys have done and got the same results. So if I don't change my ways, I'm going to be right back here in this town doing the same things and still not have a job or anything like that. So again, proving people wrong. When I got into the military, I worked hard to prove who I was not who everybody thought I was and get judged off my actions, and made it and got, and retired and had a successful career. But it took years and years and years to work through that pain and understand that, it's in the past. I can't let the past define my future. I can't let that past hold me down. I've heard many a time one of my brothers would always say, I'm my father's son, saying basically, I have no choice. I have to be that way because I'm his son. And that's where I learned that you got to make your own path.
Do you feel like family wise, maybe your brothers see how well you're doing now? Do you think that has any impact on them?
Well, my oldest brother has passed away, but he still stayed in the victim's mentality. He was always, these things didn't happen because of his actions and take responsibility. He was still a blamer, unfortunately. The brother next to me were not that tight. We weren't a tight-knit family, but what little contact I do have with him, yes, he's grown to see that I am a different person, and even brothers fight and do all that stuff. Ours was a little bit more elevated than the average brothers rivalry and stuff, but I would say now we got a better relationship, and they can see that yes, the path I took, the things I did was the right way to go.
Did you ever try to help them see it in a way? If that makes any sense?
It does, 100%. But do you have any older brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister.
Okay. And you could probably sit down and talk to her, and she's always going to see you as the baby, no matter how old you get. And how that's the way my brothers did me. So I was stationed. Do what? I was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base, getting ready to change stations and go to Korea. I was within weeks of doing that, so I was preparing. Unannounced, my two brothers come down with their families and everything. So we have riverboat gambling down there, so they couldn't get, it's on the weekend when they showed up, so they showed up at midnight and couldn't get a hotel room. So they come over to my house at midnight. I'm not prepared for them. They come in, and so anyway, we had to make room, and so they all stayed in my little 1,100 square foot house with my family. And so we stayed in there, and even then, I couldn't get them to understand that we got riverboat gambling here. That's why there's 100% occupancy in the town, in the hotels and stuff. And so my one brother, he got drunk and wanted to go to the casinos, and is like, we'll never get in. They'll never let you aboard. You're intoxicated. Oh, you don't know. You don't know. And that showed me right there that I'm always going to be the little brother that doesn't know anything because they're older, and since they're older, they're smarter and know more than I do. So no, I never. After that point there, even just to let you know, we didn't go to the riverboat. My brother didn't get arrested that night. We stayed home, just argued a lot. But that right there, from that point on, I never did try to, tell them, show them, do anything like that, because they already had that mentality that I'm the older brother. That inherently makes me smarter than you, just because of the time frame of being born first.
Let's see. And then, so with like kind of going into mentality, um, do you have like a morning routine or any type of routine that you think helps, kind of, I guess, keep that mentality?
Yes. Forgiveness as one of the things that really changed my life. I'll go through a little bit of that, and I forgiveness of myself, my teachers, my family and stuff like that. Some of them had passed away. Well, the majority of them's passed away, but you don't have to be in front of somebody to forgive them. You can do it just by yourself, and that's what I was. I was just sitting one night and was thinking, and what am I grateful for? And then I did the forgiveness, and then the other thing is gratefulness. What am I grateful for? I changed my life. I've done a lot of things here. And so that would be one. Am I putting you to sleep there?
Oh no, like I have like problems with my
Look like
body.
you're yawning.
No, yeah, sometimes I just randomly yawn.
Oh,
If I sit for too long, my body does that. It's kind of annoying,
I understand.
but you're all good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, thankfulness, gratefulness. Every day I get up, I've got a journal I keep, I write in there. That's one thing. Journaling, forgiving, whatever goes on, I'll do that at night. But of a morning time, first thing is, you know, what am I grateful for? And it doesn't have to be, I think a lot of people think that, oh, if you're going to give, be grateful for something, it's got to be something big. And no, it can be the fact that, oh, I've still got my favorite coffee in the house, or, oh, the dog is showing me a little bit more appreciation or whatever. But it's easy to find things to be grateful for, but it's hard to do it. So in the morning time, I get up, I find what I'm grateful for. I write that down. Go back sometimes and look at other things that I've written down. I do a small amount of exercising and stretching. Hydrate. I drink water every morning from, being dehydrated through the slumber, through the night. And then I start getting ready for work, and I go to work. Then come home, and I'll do a little writing, read something inspirational, something that's good for me. There's enough, trash TV that, that'll just bring you down. But then again, I do look again and what went right in the day, what went wrong. Did I get to my to-do list? Most of the time not, because the fire of the day pops up. But then I'll end my day with, again, just like I end my work day before I leave work, I write down my to-do list for the next day. Then when I get home, I do that again for the next day. This is things I'd like to accomplish. Don't always get to them, but I write them down, give thanks, and hydrate again, and then go to bed.
All right, let's see. Let's find some more, I guess, upbeat questions here. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Well, right now, I chose to live in Colorado. It'd be Colorado, but man, there's so many places. I love Germany. I love the Orients over there, Hawaii, and when I was in Korea and Japan. But I think right now, if I was to just sit right here and say, hey, I could just do everything, boom, and go someplace right now, I'd say Belize. I really liked it when I was down there.
Let's see. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would you choose?
This is it's not a historical figure. I'd love to go back and bring my grandmother back. and just let her know that, I'm glad you took us from my dad. I'm glad you raised us, and, just say thank you that, you at that time in my life, you was the only one that believed in me. You were the one that kept me going. You were the one I didn't want to disappoint. I always looked up to her and wanted to be with her. So if I could have coffee with anything right now, it would be my grandmother.
Do you,
When the times I do go back home, I go to her gravesite and sit for a while and talk to her.
do you ever did she ever make you feel like you disappointed her, or do you, I guess, ever feel like you did?
Yes, one time I did. Again, teenage alcoholic. I came home drunk, and she put me through the ringer. I had to clean all the baseboards in the house. She made me do chores. The house was very clean that day. I was sick as a dog, and yes, I felt like I disappointed her. I never did that again. Yes, unfortunately, I kept drinking, but I didn't drink to the point of intoxication to come home. If I was going to drink to the point of intoxication, I made other plans.
Or did,
But yes, that's the only time
do you ever I guess, did you kind of start to, in that mindset, did you start to plan out better of when you would come home not intoxicated? I feel like that was a long way around that question.
yes, that was, yeah, but as just knowing what that did, yes, I made other arrangements and would come home sober, or I wouldn't drink at all.
Did you have a favorite subject in school? And if so, why?
I hated school. And just like I said before, my bullies in school were the teachers. Same thing with my brothers. That's why they quit. They never graduated high school. They quit and went on about their lives. And that was another one back. I seen that they quit high school, so I had to stay and finish and graduate. So that's why I never quit, even though the teachers were my bullies and it just wasn't a good situation. I hated school, 100% of it. I had no favorite subjects. I put really very little effort in, just enough to get by and pass. But I had no favorite subjects in school.
Um, do you think you're an introvert or an extrovert?
I already know I'm 100% introvert. I was that way. They was at a time I couldn't give a silent prayer in a phone booth. And then I almost failed in military school. One of the things they do to us, they send us to these professional military education schools and certain milestones in our careers. And one of the things you have to do is give 3 speeches. I'm such an introvert that, not talking, shy, whatever you want to call it. When I did give my speech, the person sitting right in the front row could barely hear me. I spoke so low. I almost failed the schools because of that. My last speech, I got my critiques were so bad. This is one school. This is where I started changing. And so my last speech, I mucked it all up, but I was yelling, so they could hear me. And but it showed the instructor that I was trying and everything. So anyway, I passed the school. From that point on, I started looking at these higher ranks. What are they doing? And all of them at different levels did public speaking, had to be in front of people, things that I didn't want to do, couldn't handle at the time. So I joined Toastmasters. That's an organization where you go in and give speeches, certain types, and you get friendly critiques and stuff. So that helped with that, and started going to Toastmasters. and then started volunteering for positions that would put me in front of people that I had to speak or do some kind of be on display, I guess would be another way of putting it. And so I get to my last professional military education as I get up through the ranks that they send us to. And we took what's called the Briggs-Myers test, and it came out. And then when we got in, we went in for our briefing to tell what the Briggs-Myers revealed about us. I already knew what he was going to say, and that's, they come in and said, "You're an introvert." And it's like, yes, I know that, and so had the test done a few times since then. It still comes back as being an introvert. And I know, even though I don't act like it, and, I do one of the things I left out that's probably kind of odd to reveal now, but I do stand-up comedy also. And so that puts me in front of people. So, and then I found out in that a lot of stand-up comedians are introverts also. So do that. Anyway, all that to say, I'm 100% introvert.
Yeah, I will say when starting comedy, you learn people are introverts. And I am myself, I am an introvert as well. So, but yeah, you do learn that relatively quickly. But yeah.
Yes.
All right. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
My children. Make sure that they were debt free and had, income for life, income for their children. And then I'd try to find other places that I could do actually good. Now, would I spend it all on other people and not do anything for myself? No, I would, probably, I don't know, go golfing or something. I've got pretty much everything I need. I think about that a lot, and I do buy lottery tickets. But, what would I do with that money if I won that much? And, again, I'd just like to set my kids up so when I pass away and I'm getting older and everything, I know that they don't have, they have generational income, and that I don't have to worry about them. But it'd just be, like I said, I'd divide it up, give it to my children.
So if you had to write a book tomorrow, what do you think it'd be about?
Can you see this right here?
No, I think your camera might have actually froze. Sometimes it depends on what you're recording.
It might have, okay.
But it's all good.
Okay. I am writing a book right now. I'm in the process of it. 7 Secret Pillars of Sobriety, What to Do When AA and 12 Steps Are Not For You. I'm in the process of writing that right now. And so that's what it would be about. Find sobriety. If I can help somebody else find sobriety, change their life, and live the life you should live, that's if I can just help one person, I'll be satisfied.
So are you in I guess in the beginning stages of writing it? I guess still writing it, or have you gotten to any next steps?
Funny you should ask that, because I was almost finished with it. I was putting everything under the chapters, getting ready to go. I had it on an external hard drive. I plug it in one day. I have some just massive ideas that are just so good. I've got to get them up. So when I got up of a morning, that's the first thing I went down, plugged in the external hard drive, getting ready to go, and nothing's on the external hard drive. I take it to a computer shop. They cannot retrieve the information. Said it looked like it'd been overridden, wiped off. So anyway, I I had to start from the beginning. So still had a lot up here, some stuff in email. I had, so I just started grabbing stuff and again putting it in and learning that I got to save it in 3 different places. I do that now, and so I'd like to get it finished this year. So I'm got my chapters lined up. I've got stuff put up underneath them. I just need to, pretty it up and then get it off to an editor.
So what do you think the world will look like in 5 years? Or I guess that maybe you hope for your life and I guess for the world.
Right. Wow, that's almost a political question there that I'm shying away from. But I'm hoping that we can, as a country, go ahead.
I mean, I guess it could be either way.
Well, I'd like to think that I'd like to think that we can start coming together more, that we can get politicians in office that are not only out just for their sales and their political party and what goes on up in the Beltway of Washington, that they will start looking at America and saying, charity starts at home, and we just don't have that. We're spending billions of dollars in other countries when, Eastern Kentucky is almost like a third world nation when it comes to health care. There's people that, senior citizens that can't afford their medicines, and we're giving it away in other countries. Medicines are cheaper on either side of the border than they are here. I'd like to think that in 5 years we can get people into office that want to do stuff for their constituents, not get up there and fight and point fingers at each other. And, in 1920, you said this word, so we need to get you out of the office. I don't care what happened back then. We need to come together now, fix the country, fix our infrastructure, feed people, work on our homeless. We spend more money, more time in giving things to our immigrants that are coming across the border than we do our veterans. And that is not right. And I'd like to see politicians get in that would fix that. Take care of the country. Before we spend stuff on other countries, are the homeless shelters, are they fixed? Are they safe? Does the food pantries have all the food that they need? Are our bridges safe? I don't know where you live, but you're probably driving down the road in your hometown and think, why isn't this road fixed?
Yeah, there are a lot of roads out there that need to be fixed.
Right. And if we're spending billions of dollars in another country, why can't we just take a little pinch of that and put that towards that road and get that road fixed? There's a big answer there, but we're not taking care of our things at the house. We're letting as a country, metaphor here, we're letting our roof leak and the plumbing's backed up, but we're helping another nation while our stuff's falling in on us.
Yeah. I would say even out here we've got homeless people like crazy, and they're not even in shelters either. They're just, I would say it's not so much more homeless as it is a bunch of people on a lot of different things. So to put it lightly, like not just like alcohol, just like any type of anything. So, but I think that comes down to city governments and all that too.
Right, exactly. And I'd like to also see that, we'd change our attitude about addiction and not make the cure or the treatment for addiction incarceration. We could stop a lot of people going to prison for a long time if we'd treat their addiction and do it free, because there's some insurances that won't pay for it. But give it to them free, give them the correct treatment, I think we could save a lot of people from being incarcerated, because they're incarcerated because of the addiction changed their mind and then made them wouldn't do if their mind was straight. And so we send them to prison because of that act, not the addiction.
Yeah,
But if we'd have fixed the addiction, they wouldn't have caused that act. Yeah.
yeah, because like I always say to people, like, if it's kind of like when you get like a detention in school, do you really learn from like, do they really learn, or do you just kind of put them in a room and expect them to learn? Like, that doesn't really, I don't feel like that really teaches anyone anything. At least that's just my opinion on that.
Good point. I'm with you. I agree with your point there. And you can look at prison as one big detention. You know, you can sit in there. We're going to forget about you.
Yeah.
So
Let's see. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
spaghetti and meatballs.
Did you ever have like someone who
I just love that meal for some reason. And
like did you ever have someone who I guess who makes it like really well, and you're just like, this is like there's a reason why it's like maybe like a favorite meal?
no, I don't think anybody ever knocked my socks off with spaghetti and meatballs. It's just, every place I go, there's some, I will admit, that's better than others. And, the having that wet plate and everything's not all that good, or, a little bit of sauce. But again, I still like it and enjoy it, and along with the garlic bread. But not just somehow that's what I like. It's just it's easy to fix, hard to mess up.
All right. I'm going to probably do about 2 more questions roughly. Okay. What's one question you wish I asked you, and how would you have answered?
What caused you to get sober? And you want me to answer that for you? Or even the steps I took?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I will answer that for you. I'm like I said, lifelong alcoholic and everything. One night I had a borrowed car, and I didn't own it, but I was still drinking and driving, coming home late, and passed out, blacked out, I think would be a closer word for it, like I've done many a time before. And I was crossing the center line, and there was a divided highway sign. I hit the car with that sign right in the middle. Afterwards, looking at it, you'd have thought I planned it and did it on purpose. I mean, it was perfectly centered on that car. Crushed the front end off. I don't know why it didn't kill the motor. The sign come down, broke the windshield, and crushed the hood of the car down on me. And I was driving like this, all bent over. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize that's the way I had to drove home. I was about a mile from the house. That once I tried to get back in the car, thinking, how'd I even drive that? And that's the only way I could get in. So that was that rock bottom moment where I had to decide and look at my life and, where am I at? Where am I going? If I continue this pattern in my life, this is going to lead to death. It wasn't only close call I'd had. It's just each time they were graduating. So whether you believe in God, a higher power, the universe, that's the way I took it. I was getting messages each time. Stop. Okay, you didn't learn your lesson. Let me rank it up a notch. Stop. This one right here, I think, was the last time that, 'cause I think they was trying to tell me that next time I send you a message, I'm going to bring you home. I'm just going to go ahead and stop you from doing it altogether. I think, again, back to how you need to change your life so you can help somebody else change their life. So that was my deciding factor in the way I did it. The book, you see, the 7 Secret Pillars of Sobriety, that's what I come up with. I went through AA. It didn't work. It wasn't for me. And so I come up with my own program and ran it on myself, wrote it down as I'd going through it. Forgiveness, gratitude, journaling. Some of those, those are all things that help me. I believe those are things that'll help other people. I got other things in there, affirmations, visualization, and the biggest thing, accountability. Doing something that, remember I talked that my oldest brother was always, everything that happened to him in life was somebody else's fault. And that's what I had to sit down and think. Everything that's happened to me is my fault. I've caused it. So I got to take 100% responsibility for who I am, what I've done, what I've caused, what I've brought in. And that was a big changing factor. And those are pretty much the steps I use to get sober. I believe those steps will help other people also.
All right. And last question, where can listeners find you online?
I do have a Facebook account. They can just, Google me, Tim Murphy. I'm working on a website. 7 Secret Pillars of Sobriety is a website I'm working on to have a checklist in there that people can get for free. My email, I'll go ahead and give you my email address, which is Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y -T-I-M @hotmail.com. Anybody that wants to contact me, ask about my story, know anything, I'll be happy to talk to anybody.
All right. And is there...
I'm on LinkedIn also, again, just...
is there anything else you want to add before we end this interview? Yeah, that makes sense.
No, ma'am. I think we've kind of covered it all. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting me ramble about stuff and just go on. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's what I try to do with Reinvented, is let people talk about their stories. So I do hope we did that relatively successfully. But anyway, thank you guys and everyone listening, and thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. You and your listeners have a wonderful day.
Yep.